Good morning, and welcome to the second day of the Jean Monnet Chair Conference in Risk and Crisis Communication in the EU. We hope you had a great first day with impactful sessions. Today, we will have two really interesting sessions, but before we begin, I would like to remind you about the call for papers for the special issue dedicated to this conference that will be published by the Corporate Communications and International Journal. The special issue is entitled Shifting Perspectives in Crisis Communication Research in Europe. And I encourage you all to contribute and ensure that the valuable knowledge shared during this conference reaches a broader audience. The opening date is April 1st. And now I will hand over the stage to Assistant Professor Maria Mazziola from the University of Western Macedonia to moderate the first session.
Hello to all of you. I'm so glad to see you all here in this very interesting conference. It's about risk and crisis communication in the EU. Today, as Professor Amalia Triantafillidou said, we are going to have two very interesting sessions, and we will begin with the first one entitled Media Coverage in Crisis and Disasters in Europe. As I can see from the names of the Zoom windows, all the researchers are here, and we will begin with the first presentation of local media, local disaster in post-COVID era, an Italian case study by Giacomo Buoncompagni. If I can say it right, excuse my pronunciation and my mistakes in anyhow. The floor is yours, and you may begin. You can share your screen and start presenting your work.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. You can hear me? Yeah?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Okay. I can share my screen.
Okay. We see the full PowerPoint, not the presentation. We could see the.
Okay.
Okay. And if you would like, please go to the next slide in order to know that everything is okay. Okay. Yes, it changes perfectly.
Perfect.
You may begin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to my colleague for introduction. It's a very pleasure to be here in this and participate in this interesting conference. My name is Giacomo Boncompagni. I am an assistant professor in sociology of media at the University of Macerata in Italy. And my presentation entitled Local Media, Local Natural Disaster in a Post-COVID Era reviews local research conducted in Italy that consider the value of local journalism, the transformation of journalistic practices after the post-COVID information scenarios. In Italy, the COVID issue has confused and distorted the social and cultural value of journalism and alienated its audiences. But local journalism has proved to be a useful foothold over the other media for receiving information on services and emergency situation in one's own city. This is why I felt it was useful to start with the role of local journalism in relation to a further shock and social problem that has emerged even more after the COVID-19, for example, the environmental one, that of the floods. It's important because journalism in the global and the local representation of crisis as communalities learn new practices, develop skills on unforeseen and unknown issues. So, as in the case of a recent New York Times article, international and Italian media are discovering the social value of the local in the emergency. In these articles like this, the correlation between local information, community needs, and environmental disaster issues are increasingly connected and represented. Journalists recognize the emergency, the importance of responsible storytelling. We will have to see later how well trained they are on these specific issues and how the whole journalism schools will behave. Let's start with a brief theoretical reflection. With digitalization, not only as the way of reporting changed profoundly, but the journalistic profession itself has changed as production routines, the way news is processed and thematized, and the relationship with sources and audiences. Such processes have affected both national and local media, are doing journalism that appears increasingly hybrid in its architecture. Community journalism culture closer than the produced by national media. In crisis contexts, local media still play a crucial role in helping people feel connected to their communities by providing relevant news and a space for public debate, complementing the national news agenda of major newspapers. Apologize of the natural disaster situation in Italy, and then we go on to the research and some results. According to the Disaster Risk Management Knowledge Center of the European Commission Joint Research Center, Italy is the country most vulnerable to natural disaster, together with Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece. These four countries are therefore classified as highly vulnerable, stable over time. In Italy, there were 378 extreme events in 2023. So, from the point of view of methodology, the Italian case study I would like to present to you concern Emilia-Romagna, a region in central Italy, first hit by the disastrous floods in May last year. And where we start from here, there were significant numbers of death and missing persons. After the regional case, other disasters followed again in Romagna and in other regions in the north and south Italy in 2024. But the real media attention at the local, national, and international level came from the May 2023 event in Romagna. We are talking specifically about the flooded cities such as Rimini, Cesena, Forlì, and Faenza, cities close to Bologna. 25 interviews were conducted with the journalists, local and national journalists, 4 local and 2 national journalists, with different roles within the newsroom affected by the floods between the end of May and December 2023, online and in person. Below are the research questions. How does the media agenda change in the emergency, and how did Romagna newspaper related to community and local institution? How is editorial work reorganized in a local and national newsroom? Is there cooperation or conflict, for example, between journalist colleagues? And what is the connection between the form taken by local and national journalism and the attitudes journalists hold towards the reality they report? 2 main dimensions emerge from this analysis. Organizational dimension at local and national level, and in this space, the role of the local and the national journalists in the face of emergency was investigated in parallel, trying to make the professions dialogue. 2 dimension, relational and institutional dimension, analyze the relationship with sources and level of collaboration between journalists, the public, and the local institution during the flood emergency. With regard to the 2 levels of the organizational dimension of journalists in the emergencies, interesting aspects emerge with regard the roles, practices, tool use, and the psycho-emotional state. As you can see from their voices, I write some parts of interview in PowerPoint. Local journalists during the flooding perform different functions. Those who work at the desk become correspondents on the ground and vice versa. The water slowed down the Wi-Fi connection, made the movement difficult. Many journalists left and worked for 2 nights in the newsroom, at home, or by colleagues. A strong sense of responsibility in the dialogue with citizens emerged. The role of citizen journalists, for example, is also clear in other interviews. Local journalists try to keep the link with the community solid by updating the information online and on paper. All this, however, is accompanied by great fear and disorientation. The biographical private dimension often prevails over the profession. The local journalist is also a citizen of the flooded city. He is father or brother or son of family going through the emergency. Emotions sometimes devour reason and hinder concentration in the newsroom. The work of Italian national journalists, on the other hand, seems to be different both before and once they arrive in Romagna. Here we can distinguish two professional moments during the flooding: comparison and online contacts with local flooded colleagues to receive information, photos, and verify rumors. A second phase of descent into the field, however, the work of the national journalist proves to be more autonomous in the affected area. He has no emotional ties. He does not have to answer to local institutions. He concentrates on the news by selecting the topics he considers interesting for a national audience. However, he is free from any form of service information compared to local journalists. It's not his job to talk about flooded streets, houses filled with water. National journalist investigates at a high level on politics. That, for example, his agenda is broader and less constrained than the journalist of Romagna. In the face of local disaster, the journalists who live, they cultivated important relationship with the community, in particular about the local journalists. There is trust, hope, contact, confrontation, even with institution. But it's not always like this, however. There is always an hidden conflictual dimension at local level on a political basis. Distort numbers of victims or destroyed houses, public statements by mayors or police forces that are too vague, disorder, and the fear of seeing one institutional reputation crumble pollutes or slow down local information. Faced with this, the local journalist finds himself in difficulty. He must be competent in separating affect from manipulation or political interest, hypothesis from data. So to conclude, it seems to me that it's possible to make 3 macro-final considerations on the relationship between disaster and the national local journalistic representation post-COVID-19 in Italy. First of all, we recognize the social and partly institutional mediation function performed by local media in emergency situations. Local journalism still seems to be able to perform a function of territorial bonding, also thanks to an intense negotiation with the reading public. It's confirmed as a place of sense and a relationship open to both listening and entertainment, an angle role between the public sphere and everyday life. In particular, the second point, in particular in the case of Emilia-Romagna, there are 2 operational moments that are particularly important for emergency journalistic information. Necessary collaboration at the first time, and the second moment, an increasingly autonomous news gathering, selection, and sharing process. The last point, local information confirms its ability to synthesize various policies aimed at dealing with emergencies and the condition of citizens living in the territory. but it does not seem to be able to renounce a national outlook that helps it to investigate in greater depth issues that, due to a lack of human resources or the volume of institutional or service content, it would have not way up reporting. Thank you so much.
We thank you for the very interesting presentation, presenting us what happened in Emilia-Romagna in difficult times and how the journalists dealt with the issues. First of all, let me thank you for keeping the time, although I did not mention in the beginning that it was 15 time due to my anxiety, and to apologize that I neglected to say the university you come from. It is the first presentation, and I was a bit anxious. It was a very, very interesting presentation, and it is something that really gets to us because we need to get informed, but there is also the personal and emotional aspect of the journalists themselves as people besides being professionals. And I think that it is very important for that point to be noticed and to be mentioned, because sometimes we forget that journalists are also people that live among us, and they are not just professionals.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I would like to ask our audience if there are any questions regarding this first presentation. If there is something that needs to be more clarified, or yes, we have a question from Besim Pinar Ozdemir, Professor Ozdemir. I'm sorry if I'm not pronouncing right. I'm trying my best to.
It's okay. My name is Pınar Özdemir and I'm from Turkey.
Yes.
And yesterday we also made a presentation about fragile publics and
Yes.
publication. And in Turkey, throughout the crisis, the media was using the social media as a main source of information. I mean, you can follow some very fake news, which is on Twitter. They were using these news in the mainstream media. I think they were afraid of missing some stuff, and without proving it, I mean, being sure that if it is true or not, they were using it in the main media. Did you experience anything like this in Italy? I'm concerned. I mean, it was very disappointing for me because, you know, okay, social media is full of misinformation, and okay, when I read something from social media, I know that it can be something wrong. But when I see it, for example, in a respectable website of an international newspaper, I want to believe it. But sometimes I saw some news which is fake in social media as a real news in a respectful newspaper, and it really affected my trust to mainstream media. I mean, I don't have any trust in mainstream media at all now, but still, it's a bit disappointing. Did you have such experiences in Italy, I wonder? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you too. Yes, but in general, in Italy, after the COVID-19 experience, in my opinion, there is a general opinion in the Italian population that the social media now it's a disinformation environment that create conflict and disinformation in general. But during the crisis, obviously, there is a possibility that the consideration, that perception can be grown sometimes at the national, at the local level. But what I understand in this research, the role is disinformation is present in some voices of local and national journalists, because it's important to search and confirm some sources online and the local level, because in the case of Emilia-Romagna and the home cities, the role of public opinion, the population voice is important, because the danger, the risk, the number of deaths, and so on and so forth, are data that come from, first of all, by the countries or the the police forces database. And in this case, the disinformation is very difficult to verify. Why? Because there is a mix in online environment and in social environment at the local level about citizen voices, rumors, memes, image, and so on and so forth. And so in these moments, also the different media, in television space, in the newspaper, in the social media channel, and so on and so forth, there is a very overload information during the floods. But I can verify that in this moment, especially in the first 2 weeks during the post floods, in the 2 weeks, there is an important and conflictual situation between national newspaper and the local newspaper. This information is accused between national journalists and local journalists. In this sense, local journalists, in their opinion, are important because their goal is to build a service information. And in this sense, know the town, know the city, the region, and so on and so forth, the political institution. In their opinion, there is not the possibility to build disinformation, to create disinformation environment at the national local. But the very actors as producer of disinformation is a national journalist, because don't know the local reality, don't know the phenomenon, don't have enough data to verify, don't know population, local institution. And so in this sense, there is a conflict at the national and local level about who built this information during the floods. In this sense, it's very sad situation, because journalism is an important institution, an important infrastructure at the national and local level during the crisis for citizens. And in this sense, it's very important from a scientific point of view to verify this conflict. But from a civic point of view, it's a sad situation, because this absence of dialogue between national journalists and local journalists, in this sense, where national journalists and local journalists don't recognize themselves as possible actors to responsible to build this information during the crisis. And so it's a particular situation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for the question and answering, for clarifying situations, especially when facts are in order, and you have to know, especially when in crisis situations, that decisions has to be made fast, and of course verification is not easy to happen, but also people's decisions of what they are going to do with their lives, their next hour, their next is really important. It is a matter of believing and trusting the media. Thank you very much. In case more questions come after the next presentations, we may come back. So we are moving on to the next presentation, which is media coverage of disasters and young audiences, by Katerina Chrysantopoulou from the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki and the Ionian University from here, Greece. So, Katerina, Mrs. Chrysantopoulou, you may start.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me here. And I would wish that we wouldn't have so many crises in Europe, so that we wouldn't need this type of conferences. But I'm afraid that we will need more in the future as things are a bit turbulent these days. So let me share my screen and see if we can. Oh, not this one. This one. Can you see my screen now?
No, I'm afraid
No,
we
no, no,
cannot.
no. Wait.
Please share the whole screen. When you press the green button, choose the upper left window which says screen, the whole of the screen. Yes, we're starting to see something. It comes.
Something.
Yes.
Yes.
We can see the whole of the PowerPoint. If you could please make it a presentation in the presentation mode.
Let me see if I can change my slides now. Can you?
It's still in the presentation. It's not in the presentation mode. It's still in the
I can see it in the
PowerPoint.
presentation mode in my computer, but I
Okay.
cannot show it. So would you mind that I could show it this way?
Okay, it is big enough. We can read the presentation. Of course, we can hear you. I think we can keep this way since. Please try and change the slides in order for us to see that everything is okay. Yes, they do.
Yeah,
Yes.
so
Okay.
this is better. It's more practical and it's faster instead of losing more time to do it correctly. So I'm going to try to change the shift of the discussion a little bit. So because I'm very much interested in young audiences and how they consume news, and in our case, how they consume news or any types of content that media provide in order to cover disasters. I am going to start with a few things about how young people consume media and consume news, especially in the social media platforms, because this is the new commons for young people. Social media, that's where they share interests, they communicate, they construct their identities, they raise their voices, and they learn about the world. Always subject to the algorithms that create these specific spaces for them, but also they guide them to watch specific content. They rely on social media a lot, and these platforms give them a sense of belonging, but at the same time, they promote certain news consumption habits. And they also influence identity building by promoting specific stereotypes or certain views regarding social issues, political issues, but even other issues regarding their sexuality, relations, ethics, etc. Also, their beliefs are can be influenced due to the content that they access unsupervised. This is very important to stress throughout the presentation, that young people are unsupervised by any adults when they access this type of content, and also the content is usually decontextualized, so they are not very much able to understand where it belongs in terms of the depiction of the real world out there. News consumption is very important for citizenship anyway, for all ages. For young ages, it is even more important because this is where they understand how to build their views on the society where they live, and also because they very early on at 17 in Greece they have the right to vote, so they need to know how to be news literate and understand what to believe and how to use the content that they find on media about the news. But however, the problem is that the genres are have very blurred boundaries in between them in the social media realm, so it's not easy for them to understand what to believe or not. News literacy skills are something that can be taught to children and teens, but unfortunately, even news literate young people do not use the skills that they learned in their daily life. I mean, maybe they know how to search, to fact check for the information they get, but usually very often they don't do so due to lack of motivation or due to the individual attitudes that they create, they develop for their personality, due to lack of agency, which is very important because they do not have a voice, a public voice, so they don't care so much to implement their skills, or to the deficits they have in participatory skills. Also, young people are not represented in the news, so they are not covered even in disasters or in everyday life, and they do not have a public voice, and they do not have, especially in issues of power, rights, opinions, responsibilities, etc. They do not have a representation in media, so they act as a marginalized group, and even in disasters, they continue to act as a marginalized group, and also they tend to reach for information in alternative media channels. The platforms thus they are windows to the world. They are massive educators, actually. The problems, as I said before, is that the information there is random, uncontrolled, decontextualized, and this way they can reach out and they can access all types of distressing information or graphic content, unsupervised or usually by an adult, and even not being able to discuss this with their peers or some person of power. The platforms have replaced the families sometimes for them, and they react based on emotions, while the families are not there to filter the news coming from the outside world. And also when the discussions on social media or on posts, etc., become too polarized, they cannot really understand which is the difference in between blame and punishment and accountability, and this increases stress. We need to understand how the young people access the news, how they deal with their emotional, cognitive challenges that they face when they reach out to when they receive information, and whether they are aware of the non-neutrality of the algorithm curation of the content that they receive. In the case of disasters specifically, we are very much interested to see whether young people can access content which is embedded in explanatory context, which is useful and adequate for them, so that they can take the information that they need in the appropriate language and format, along with explanations and advice on their well-being, because a very important issue here is that young people and teenagers, children, even if they are victims or not of a specific disaster event, they tend to be re-traumatized when receiving these content from the social media or the mainstream media. And it has been shown that this kind of content creates a lot of stress to them. They have difficulty sleeping. They relive some events again and again. They do not have the younger ages mainly. They do not have the cognitive abilities to tackle the various emotional dimensions of crisis management, so they go through a very difficult time to digest the content. Usually the media frame disasters through certain causal interpretations, and they provide certain practical details, provide images, but many times they take a certain view, a certain point of view when covering a disaster. So neutrality is not always guaranteed. And this is important for young people. On the other hand, we know very well that media and especially and social media and mainstream media at the same time are very important during disasters because they can recreate communities. They can help people to find members of their community or their family. Sometimes they can help them feel solidarity and cohesion. Also, there is research ongoing research that GIS models can be utilized in concert with social media platforms, so that you can locate other people easily, which is very important. So media and social media can help us a lot during disaster management. But nevertheless, even the curated content or the user-generated content, which is raw as they shoot it, many times is very disturbing for young people. And considering that they do not have some adults to guide them how to consume this content, they can feel that their emotions can be manipulated, their engagement with the media is distorted sometimes, and their capacity to process complex situations is sometimes impaired. They are confused, and especially during polarization. They can be very scared. They can show symptoms like avoidance, hyperarousal, emotional instability, self-blame many times when something happens, whether they believe that maybe they have contributed to this disaster, behavioral change sometimes, memory issues, or even if in an ongoing crisis, academic difficulties, appetite changes, and general behavioral problems. So what do we need to do? The point is that no matter what the media do, we need to provide adult scaffolding to young people at the level of the family and the school in order to provide context, to provide the proper scale and explanations to what has happened, what they have seen on the social media or on TV, etc. Offer human interaction and emotional calibration to them so that they can feel that they can be embraced and that life goes on. Protect their well-being, of course. Explain them that there are ways to mitigate risks and that those who are in charge are working towards the solution of the problem. Offer an environment where they can they can develop their critical skills to judge what they see, and they with reasoning and rationality, and emphasize the positive reactions that exist during crisis management. It's very important for them. The schools also can create some environment for dialogue without sharing own opinions or biases. This is very important because also parents and professors, teachers are very much emotionally, in an emotional manner, handling the situation. So it's important for them to take some distance, but it's very critical for young people, this thing. They can provide training on news literacy, show them how to laterally read other sources to fact check what they receive on their social media feed, and reassure that things are under control via compassionate dialogue and discussions. Also, the media can the adults can approach young people with open-ended questions. They can provide role models. They can, in school, they can incorporate some examples of disasters that can have been resolved, show them where to look for reliable resources, create some activities in the classroom, and also have an open channel with the communities. And media can provide content, especially tailored for young audiences, tailored for per age group. There are media which are which have as their main audience young people, children or teenagers, so they could do the start, and also mainstream media could include some parts for young people. So the young children need very simplified language and very reassurance-focused messages, emphasizing mainly community support and rescue efforts, and with storytelling techniques, with animated videos, so that they can understand. Older children can absorb some factual details more, and they can enter some educational activities at the same time while they consume the news. And they can be engaged because they will feel that they are not alone. They can find the way to go beyond their fear. Teenagers can understand the complex situations, but sometimes they are more affected by disasters than children because they are more independent. So they feel that they are out there in the world, and the world is, very bad at this moment. But they need to receive balanced information that which is empowering enough so that they can learn that they can help, they are safe, they are not alone, and they can be news literate and media literate when consuming this kind of information. So we need a media literacy pedagogy in the news, and for this reason, formal education should merge with communication theories in order to promote collaborative, expressive, and critical skills for young people to foster democratic engagement and encourage responsible communication. It has been shown in the studies that if young people are guided to critically study and discuss the news, they can learn how to employ concentration and metacognitive strategies to handle complex or difficult content, and to know how to rationally form opinions on current affairs, which is a prerequisite for civic engagement. And both the school, the family, and the media have a very important role to play. And we hope that we see some developments in the future. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Christantopoulou, for your interesting presentation regarding youth. All of us, either as parents or either as educators, having to deal with young people, we are worried about what the content they consume and in what way it affects them. So it's a really interesting presentation. I would like to ask, first of all, our audience if there are any questions on the presentation. Professor Triantafyllidou, yes, please.
Thank you for the interesting presentation. I would like to ask you, yesterday we saw by Professor Özdemir that vulnerable publics during disasters need information mainly through their parents. Do you think this is the case in the Greek publics? So disaster managers need to have two publics in mind, parents and children as well, when we talk about disasters and how to communicate.
Media have many types of audiences. When content is created, they should consider all types of audiences, because they reach out to many, to thousands of people of various ages and of various types of vulnerabilities, elderly, disabled people, women in danger, in risky situations. So all of these have to be taken into consideration. We don't need special content for each type every time, but I remember, for example, sometimes the newspapers with an Italian newspaper started this some years ago. They had issued an article giving instructions to teachers and parents what to do, what to say to their children, to young children, because there was a serious earthquake, if I have not mistaken, and the children were very much afraid. So there are some specific activities that the media could do, or specific contents that could be issued, but all audiences should be covered by media content anyway. This is what I think, both in disasters and in normal real way of life.
Thank you very much.
Yes, we have another question from Professor Özdemir.
Indeed. I would like to make a little contribution. While we were doing our research, talking about the fragile publics, someone from an NGO told us that if you are not an heterosexual young man, the rest of the population in Turkey is fragile. I mean, most of the population is fragile. Fragile publics are not a little part of the population. Indeed, they're the most of the population. So I think when you are creating a content, you should mostly think about them as they are more than the heterosexual young man in the population. I just wanted to add it because it really hit me hard when he said it, because we think like fragile public is all disabled people and this and that. And indeed, this is not true. I mean, at least for our country, if you're not male and heterosexual, you have high potential to be fragile during a crisis. I just wanted to add this anecdote as it really hit me hard when I heard it.
Yes, it's really impressive. It's really impressive to consider that besides heterosexual young males, everyone is considered in difficult, in vulnerable part of the population.
And allow me to say just one more thing before we close. This is important also for the media, for the future of the media. They say that people do not trust the media, etc. Of course, because all these marginalized groups, fragile groups are marginalized, actually. So they reach out to marginal channels, to alternative channels of information. So they don't care about the mainstream media anymore. And so that's a problem that the media should resolve.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the interesting discussion that followed the presentation of Dr. Chrysanthopoulos. So we may proceed now to the next and final presentation of this session about media framing of floods in major European newspapers, a comparative analysis. And which will be presented by Nikos Pantos, Georgia Katartzi, Vasiliki Koukouraki, and Chrysoula Pithula from the University of Western Macedonia. So we may begin. Who is going to begin? Who is the first one to start the presentation?
Me.
Good morning. Vasiliki, you may begin. Please try to, I don't know who is handling the presentation, to make it full screen, please.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Please change to the next slide in order to see that everything is going according. Excellent. So you may begin.
All right. So our your title of the research is Media Framing of Floods in Major Online European Newspapers. It's a comparative analysis. The authors are Georgia Katartzi, Vasiliki Koukouraki, Nikolaos Pantos, and Chrysoula Pithula from the University of Western Macedonia. Our objective was to examine how floods are framed in leading European online newspapers, and the goal is to compare coverage from 4 different countries to identify common themes in how floods are reported or to highlight any major differences. Based on the framing theory, the way that media interpret and construct the reality of the disaster can influence what citizens believe about the event. This is known as the second level of framing. Understanding how disasters are framed in the media can help emergency managers, communicate better improve public preparedness, safety, and resilience. During a disaster, the media are the most visible stakeholders, and they are important sources of information. They can provide warning messages, describe the event and the ongoing situation, and even help with recovery efforts. The research on disasters and the framing of the disasters shows that the media often use a variety of frames. These include political frames, which focus on government and politicians, as well as frames for highlighting the economy, the environment, and human interest stories. I rest a little, that's all right. And the number of studies have examined how the media portray the disasters, and the majority of studies indicate that news and media stories are mainly descriptive in nature and provide a neutral reporting of the situation and event, while there is an increase in articles that criticize the government policies and present citizens as victims. However, most of the studies in media framing of floods are context-specific, and they focus either on one flooding event or in a number of floods that affected one particular country. Hence, there is a lack of studies that compare how media portrayed floods across different European countries to identify common patterns or differences across media coverage. The methodology that we used was to analyze articles from 4 major European online newspapers that offer English version: El País from Spain, ANSA from Italy, Der Spiegel from Germany, and France 24 from France. We selected the 20 most recent articles from each newspaper using the keyword floods, and then we conducted a content analysis of these articles. Each category was coded manually on SPSS using a 0-1 system to mark the relevant content. For the coding, we focused on the main frames that the articles presented, the description of the situation, whether they talked about human interest, the environment, the government response, the assignment of the blame, the mentioned stakeholders, the victims, the volunteers, the scientists, and other different stakeholders, the stages of the disasters mentioned, whether they discuss the pre and post-disaster situation, the relief efforts, and everything related to that, and what quotes and references were used. The articles that we examined were mostly from the month of November. The days with the highest number of articles about floods were 20th of September, which referenced Emilia-Romagna floods in Italy, the 30th of October, the 1st of November, and the 7th of November that talked about the floods in Valencia, Spain, the 12th and the 13th of November that talked about floods in the Balearic Islands in Spain. Moving on to the results, Nikolaos Pantos is going to present them.
Thank you, Vasiliki. So in this section, we will present to you the results of our research. To begin with, it is crucial to underline the importance of some factors in the articles throughout the media we examined. We verged on the description of the event and the mechanism or government response being referred in the articles. We can clearly see that the majority of the articles focuses on giving a description of the events. Well, on the other side, we can confirm that the articles that refer to the mechanism and government response are less than 50%. Moving on to the next slide, we emphasize in the framing of the crisis from the medium. It's interesting to see how there are no differences across the economical framing. It's also engrossing to see how human interest is on the target of the most articles through the media, while the environmental impact and infrastructure are less in media's interest. Next, we examine the assignment of blame of each article for every newspaper, and what we found is something significant. A major percentage of every article blame it on the external factors, such as weather conditions, climate change crisis, while blaming the government and multinationals and lack of preparation is low on the list. Well, another important outcome of our research is that out of all of our articles we studied, 52.5% of the articles were referring to pre-crisis stage, while another 52.5% referred to post-crisis stage. Now, there are no differences found for pre-crisis references across the newspapers, though. Also, we need to give a sharp attention to pre- and post-crisis references. since it consists of warning messages, disaster relief efforts, solutions, and recommendations, or even references to previous disasters. Well, in this situation, we found out that a high rating percentage of the articles referred to the other disasters, while a low rating percentage focused on disaster relief efforts. Now, there are the references, I might say, on the pre and post-crisis reference media formed an average percentage, while the references on the disaster manager quotes and politician quotes were slightly more referred on the articles in addition to scientific data. As we progress, it's essential to highlight the stakeholders. So let's proceed by identifying the individual group or groups who matter most. Here's how the stakeholders are proportionally represented in the research findings. So the top rating stakeholder that the articles emphasize on is victims. And this is precisely justified by the fact on what we saw earlier in the research when the articles focus on human interest. Now, there are many groups of stakeholders to be mentioned, but these with greater tendency to be mentioned are victims, emergency managers, politicians, governments, and in last place, tourists. We observed excuse me. We observed that the rating stakeholder that the articles emphasize on is victims. So we observed some differences across the newspapers. For example, France 24 focuses more on victims, volunteers, emergency managers, weather forecast, or non-governmental organisms. Meanwhile, Spiegel and El País are located in mean-ranged percentages. Well, on the other side of the coin, we see that ANSA focuses more on other media, while the other groups are quite low rated in percentage. What's particularly noteworthy is that in our findings, on the next slide, our findings is that the emergency civil protection mechanisms lie in a low percentage, scoring an 18.8%, being third from last place. Finally, in the results, there were no differences found for references to tourists, economic stakeholders, vulnerable groups, and politicians across the newspapers.
Now
moving on
to the conclusions. Thank you, Nico. We can see that the majority of the newspapers use photographic documentation alongside the articles. And the focus, we can see on the next slide, which was mentioned before, is that the focus was on the human interest, their stories, and how they were affected by the floods. Many articles also made references to other similar disasters that had happened. And emergency managers and politicians were the most quoted crisis stakeholders, while scientists were incorporated in 1 out of 3 articles. Next, we can see that the European newspapers provide mainly descriptive stories of the floods and focus on the human interests and the victim stories. Okay, now we can see more clearly, more specifically of each European newspaper. Der Spiegel had a neutral tone and mainly analyzed the events. We must also note that the climate crisis and the environment were the most important causes of floods. Although most of the times refer to the environment and the climate crisis as an important factor of the floods, Der Spiegel also focused on the human interest. Next, we can see that in France 24, the French newspaper, their articles are mentioning in the floods that occurred in Spain. France 24 doesn't blame the government, and all the articles have neutral or a negative tone. Also, we must mention that in all the articles that have been analyzed, there was no reference about vulnerable groups such as elderly or people with disabilities. Then, in the Italian newspaper, ANSA, most of the articles refer to the floods that hit Emilia-Romagna. There were a lot of photos that accompanied every article, and despite the many references on the government response, the newspaper did not consider it responsible for the disasters. Lastly, ANSA did not refer as much to stakeholders compared to the other newspapers. Next, the Spanish newspaper, El País. The most recent articles refer to the floods in the Balearic Islands, and the earlier on the floods in Valencia. Although some of the articles were neutral, most of the time the writers assigned blame. The responsibility was often attributed to the state or specific individuals from the political scene. Climate change was often mentioned as the main cause for the intensity of the floods. Next, we can see an analysis of the four, a comparative analysis of the four newspapers. Der Spiegel, the human interest and the stories of the victims was a very big thing for the articles. ANSA was the only one that assigned blame to the multinational companies, and it was also the one that mentioned the European mechanism. France 24 also had many mentions on the human interest, the environment, and the recovery and disaster relief, while El País mentioned the responsive mechanism and the government, and it assigned blame on the government. Next, we can see that there was a difference in government critique, where El País attributed blame to the government in a higher extent than the other newspapers. This critique probably comes from the greatly polarized political culture, and holding the government accountable is a very common practice in the country. The differences across the newspapers could also be attributed to the disaster proximity. Given that most of the newspapers refer to the floods in Spain, it can be argued that critique to government is more likely to appear to outlets that have a physical proximity to the event compared to outlets from other countries. We should also mention some limitations of the survey and some research suggestions that could be done in the future. The study was limited to 4 European newspapers and analyzed 80 articles, and also future research could enhance the number of articles as well as the number of European countries examined. Thank you very much.
We thank you very much for the very, very interesting presentation and very thorough presentation about how floods were presented in 4 major, 4 big European newspapers. I have to say something as a professor in the university. I'm really proud of our students because the presentation was done from undergraduate students who very thorough dealt with the issue, coped with the issue of floods in Europe, and had a great presentation here today at the conference. Congratulations. I'm not really being a chairwoman at the moment, but I'm really proud of our kids, our students, and I cannot hide that.
Thank you.
So are there any questions from our audience? Yes, they're undergraduate. Yes, Mrs. Efthimiadi.
Hi, thank you so much for the presentation. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we do. And we can see you now.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Oh, perfect. Thanks so much for the presentation. I wanted to ask, so you mentioned that some newspapers were criticizing the government. Did you also check the relationship between the newspaper and generally how they view the government? Because there maybe some newspapers, if not the majority, that they take a political stance, usually in other matters as well. So I was wondering if the ones that they actually criticize the government were the ones that generally are against the government, or this doesn't have, there is no relationship there.
Nico, if you would like to answer, you can make them because I see you raise your hand.
That's a good question. I mean, there must be a relation with each media and the government, but in this exact study, we just focused on how media framed the article, the news, and how they presented them on people across the European across the Europe, I may say. Well, that's something interesting to see in more extended research, but we just focused on how the media framed the news and the information they provide on people who tend to read daily, monthly, or even yearly these newspapers. So I don't know if I helped you, but I guess, well, that's a great information just to be in an extended, in a more extended research. So thank you very much.
Thank you too. Yeah, it was clear. Thank you. It's a topic for further research. Yeah, it's totally fair.
Vasiliki, I think I'm sorry, Mrs. Efthimiadi, because I saw that might Vasiliki wanted to add something. I'm sorry that I talked over you. I'm really sorry.
I would like to add that the research was only limited to one newspaper per country, only 4 newspapers, and although some were neutral, some were left-leaning, like El País. If we took a different newspaper from Spain, for example, it could have a different critique for the government than El País, because El País is a little biased since it has a political stance. We could also mention the media systems theory and how each newspaper, the relationship they have with their government per country. So it requires further analysis because it's a very topic to cover.
If I may also add, the Spanish newspaper, which was the one that that assigned blame more to the government. Let's not forget that the majority of the floods also happened in Spain, and we also mentioned the proximity of the country and the floods. So I think that whatever country that was, if the floods happened in that country, the media and the people would be more critical of the situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
One last thing, we also, sorry.
No.
We only covered the English version of the articles. Maybe because it was towards an international audience, it can be paraphrased and catered differently than the original piece.
Very interesting remark. I don't know, Mrs. Efthimiadi, are you okay with the answers?
Yes, of course, very, very explanatory. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. As I see, Konstantinos Giannalopoulos has raised his hand as well, so we could hear Konstantinos now.
Thank you. The question is about for our team. How recording the measure the reactions from the residents of Valencia to the King family and the Prime Minister Sanchez and the socialist government of Spain? Thank you.
If it's easy, could you please repeat the question? Because I didn't hear
My
it.
English is not so good.
Oh, no, it's fine. It's
Sorry.
fine. I didn't hear it. If you can please repeat.
I say from the reactions of Valencia residents to the King family, probably to the King Felipe and the Queen Felicia and the Prime Minister Sanchez and the government of the socialist government of Spain.
Okay, Nikolaos, I could add something.
I answer? I mean, there is not an answer in this question, because this gets more, how can I say it, more political. It's also another factor to be studied in the research, and I cannot, give an exact answer, because this could be someone's opposing answer. And I don't want to create a contribution. Well, I could actually answer that this is a factor to be examined in another research, but thank you, Konstantinos, for posing your question, because the disasters in Spain were catastrophical, and the only thing I could add, as a citizen, I live close to Athens, and there is a place called Mandra, which was actually found in the middle of a crisis back in 2009. I can't remember the exact date, but there was a huge 2017. Yeah, it was a tragic
November
catastrophe. Yes, it was a tragic catastrophe, and all I remember was my parents talking about it so intensely, and all the people reacting into television and hearing live what experiences had the people who stood in front of this crisis. And the only thing I can say that was something catastrophical, and the reactions were what they were, in order to activate the survival instincts of people. And yeah, I cannot go further and answer this question, but thank you for posing this question, because it's something interesting. Thank you very much, Konstantinos.
We will hear Vasiliki and Chrysoula because they want to add something, and we will close this very interesting session.
So each one of us covered a different newspaper. I was the one who covered El País. The question was how the newspaper covered the reaction of the citizens to the royal family.
Yeah.
Right. So if I remember correctly, there were only a couple of articles that mentioned Sanchez specifically, and it wasn't very criticizing. It was just stating facts and acts that Sanchez took, actions that he took, and some things that he said on the media. Mostly we focused on the topical government, the municipality, the area of Valencia, and not the entire government body or the royal family. It was not very analyzed.
Thank you, Vasiliki. Chrysoula, would you like to add something? Because
Vasiliki covered
you.
my response
Okay.
also.
What I would like to add to all this is that when you point to certain specific elements that you count, and okay. What I would like to say is that specific points were measured, so these were counted in the specific research, as I could understand of what our students presented here. So it is a topic that has too many extensions in too many different fields of politics, of other kinds of disaster, of more newspapers, and Nikolaos, Chrysoula, and Vasiliki mentioned all of them that could be further mentioned and further researched in the future. I would like to thank you all for that very interesting session. We talked about media coverage in crisis and disasters in Europe. We will have a short break until 12:30, where the next session about organizational intent and external crisis communication and management will be held with chairwoman with Professor Amalia Triantafyllidou. We will all be here to hear the next very interesting presentations. We leave you for the time. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity to present.
Thank you. Thank you very much also.
We are proud
Bravo,
of
Nico.
you.
Bravo, Nico.
Yeah.
Thanks. Very nice.
For today. The second session is entitled Organizational, Internal and External Crisis Communication and Management. And we have three very exciting presentations. And we can start with Harisios Kalaboukas. He's a postgraduate student at the University of Western Macedonia, and he will present us his study about civil protection online communication, a comparative analysis of European Union member states. Harry, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can you see it?
Yes, but we want the full presentation mode.
Yeah. It's okay now?
Fine. Perfect.
Thank you. Hello, I'm Haris Kalaboukas, and I will talk to you about the online presence of civil protection organizations, and more specifically, which member states of the European member has a separate website for civil protection, which of them have the content available in English, and what content they choose to communicate through their website. The European Commission has established the EU Civil Protection Mechanism to strengthen cooperation between EU countries and the 10 participating countries in the field of civil protection in order to improve disaster prevention, preparedness, and response. The aim of civil protection is to protect people from damage caused by disaster, and the main objectives are resources mobilization, prevention and mitigation, coordination and communication, and training and capacity building. Communication is a critical function in disaster, crisis, and emergency management. Through communication, information is collected, proceeded, and shared with others. Effective communication can have an impact to the way people predict and respond to disasters, enhance trust between authorities, responders, and the public, which is essential to better cooperate in a disaster. Disaster communication can be categorized according to the communication period. To emergency communication, which refers to communication during a disaster, and a long-term communication, which refers to the communication before and after a disaster. The evolution of technology and the internet has brought changes in the way news is communicated and disseminated. This evolution has given businesses, organizations, and government agencies the opportunity for more personalized and direct communication. All these developments have also brought change in disaster communication, having revolutionized the decision-making process, knowledge inheritment, and communication. Exploiting the potential of the new communication channel in disaster management requires a deep knowledge and understanding of this multimedia. More specifically, websites can provide a more efficient and effective option for the rapid, planned, and global dissemination of disaster information. And it's a great way to inform people about disaster, provide information about disaster, and to outline mitigation strategies. An online communication channel is a social media which plays an important role as a communication tool, especially during a disaster. Their application is shaped by the context, the users, and the crisis. The potential user of a disaster could be individuals, communities, organizations, governments, and news media. Also, social media can provide a rich footprint in a real event, but with proper analysis of this data can lead to a better response to disaster. Here is some advantages of the online communication, advantages and disadvantages of the online communication in disaster management. Some of the advantages can be preparing the public for a possible disaster, a rapid distribution of information, and the community involvement. And some disadvantages could be the information overload, some technological challenges, and cybersecurity. When it comes to my research, the purpose of this research was to highlight the European Union member states that have a civil website, to examine the themes of the civil protection websites of European Union that they had content in English, and how presented it, in order to draw conclusion about the content they choose to communicate to the public and the difference or the similarities between them, based on aiming to come to a broader understanding on how organizations implement online communication through a website. When it comes to the results, we see that 17 of 20 have a separate civil protection website, and the remaining 10 either integrate the civil protection section of the Ministry of Interior, or the website is shared with the foreign website. Of the 17 countries that have separate websites, 11 of them give the option to the one who visited to see the content in English. The analysis showed that the primary object of the MOST website was to communicate information about the civil protection organization. The majority of the information was focused on presenting the purpose of the organization, while some included a short historical background. Few websites reported information on the administrative structure, and even less provide a section with a summary of the management team. Another theme that all websites had was the content information. More specifically, the majority have the most basic content information like telephone, email, and address. However, there were also websites that provide additional content information like contact forms or a map that can lead to the location of the civil protection headquarters. Now, another category that most websites had, it was a section with news and press releases in English. Here we need to point that only 5 of them update the section regularly, while the remaining 3, they may take from 6 months to a year before a new article was published. And 3 of them don't have any such section. The content that the organization communicate to this section was quite common and referred to civil protection actions and press releases about events and events that civil protection held, and fewer articles about emergencies like earthquakes or severe weather. 73% of the website had a section about the European mechanism and international relations. This content presented the purpose and the role of the European Civil Protection Mechanism, and some of them included the operation that had involved in EU or internationally. When it comes to information about natural or technological disaster, only 3 out of the 11 websites had such section. The most comprehensive and well-organized themes was found on the website of Greece and Italy, as they covered a wide range of disaster or emergency situation. Greece even provided information in 9 different languages. Their content was about information on specific natural or technological disaster, a brief explanation of the phenomenon, and also they gave instruction for preparation, protection, and response. The website that didn't have such a separate section provides some information on specific emergencies. For example, the websites of Ireland provide information about how to prepare for a winter. And like you see in the right picture, the website of the Danish Civil Protection provide information about actions in the case of emergency. But there was also the case of Swedish civil protection, where information of natural disaster, man-made disaster, or other emergencies was given on separate websites. Now, all three websites that had a section about natural and chronological disaster had information about fire, floods, and severe weather. Italy and Greece provide information also for earthquake and volcano, and only Italy website provide information about a tsunami. In terms of the presentation of 1111 number, only 4 of them had a section containing information about the number, which in general terms covered the purpose of the number, how to call it, and how it works in each country. Here we need to point out that the Portuguese website has a reference to a section on the for this number on the homepage, and that the only section available on the Croatian Civil Protection website in English was about this number. Regarding the website that had a section of volunteering, it was observed that 55% included such section. In all of them was a presentation about the purpose and the mission of the volunteer. And some of them, like Ireland's and Swedish website, provide information on the training of a volunteer and how someone can join this training. Another element that almost all websites had in common was the changing in the content when the navigation option was in national language. As you can see in the video, when you change the language into the local language, you see the difference in the content that the website had. Italy and Greek websites had the same content, either someone navigate in them in English or in the national language. When it comes to audiovisual content, 7 websites had a separate section with audiovisual material like videos and photos. The content mainly concerned civil protection, operation, and events. Only the Greek website had videos about protection guidelines or information for a specific natural disaster, as you can see on the left video. The German website provided video which gave information how German civil protection was respond to an emergency or a risk. The most complete section and the one with the richest material are those in Italy, Greece, and Germany, while the other 4 have quite limited material. In some cases, it was only 1 video, and some of them was quite outdated. Now, regarding social media, it can observe that the main tool used by civil protection organizations was Twitter, followed by YouTube and Facebook, while few organizations use Instagram. At this point, it's worth mentioning that the Danish and the Czech Republic websites have links to social media only if someone navigates to their local language. The most comprehensive presentation of social media was found on the Italian website because it has a separate theme for social media, providing information on the media it uses and how it does it. Now, as you can see in the graphic that presents the themes and the frequency that was found on each website, the online communication of the organization seemed to be primarily focused on the presentation of the organization, answering questions such as who, what, and how and when, while secondary in communicate the presenting preparedness or awareness information about disaster or emergencies or other hazards. As low percentage of website incorporate themes whose content was oriented to communicate information about disaster, emergencies, or similar difficult situation. Based on the findings, the most all-around websites, according to the criteria of the survey, were the websites of Italy and Greece, which had all-around section on both civil protection organization and topics focused on disaster and crisis information. Countries with a low number of topics choose to focus on content related to civil protection agency of the respective country and presenting some minimal topics for information on disaster or emergency. Here are some suggestions to make better, how we can make better a website, how can make a better website? Like all the websites should have information about the 1111 number, update information on the website as regularly as possible, a new publication policy to develop more effective ways of communicating with stakeholders, disaster preparedness and training, integration of accessibility tools, and creating a common framework on what they should communicate through their website. Thank you for your attention. And before I close, I want to say that all the results can be different depending on the period that you examine it, because a website can change at any time. Thank you again.
Thank you, Harry. It was a really interesting presentation. And I will give the floor now to the audience if anyone would like to pose a question to Harry about his study. I will make a question. I will ask you about the Greek webpage and the Ministry of Climate Crisis and Civil Protection. Did you find a difference in the level of sophistication in our website compared to the other civil protection websites in the European Union countries that you examined?
That depended because our website is changed. It's changed that it forms in March. It's more updated like other websites like Malta's or Portuguese, but that I can observe that has similarities with Italy's website. It's like when you see it separately, it's like the same. It's like look like it's the same website. They have almost the same information, the same structure. So yeah.
So we are doing well in our online
I think
presence.
yeah, after the update, yeah, we make a better website, but we need to change small things like it's like coding, not about communication. It's about the coding of the site.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Harry, for the presentation. And now we can move on to the second presentation of this session. And we have Kyriakos Tsiotas and Professor Iordanis Kotzaivazoglu. And they're going to talk about social media and personnel resilience, insights from the 2020 refugee crisis in Greece. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Good morning. I don't know if do you hear me well. Can you
Yes,
please
we
just
can hear
verify?
you.
Thank you very much. Do you all see the presentation?
No. So the green button, the share button.
Yeah.
Okay, if you the full presentation mode, and if you can change the slides so we can see that everything works fine.
Excuse me. I'm not very familiarized with technology.
Now we have a black screen, I think. You have to share and then reshare your screen, not the application of the PowerPoint.
Now do you read the presentation?
Okay, yes, please move on to the next slide so we can see that.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you very much. Excuse me for the delay. So good morning again. I'm Kyriakos Chiotas. I'm a PhD candidate, and with Professor Iordanis Kodjaipazoglu, we are going to present you our study on social media and personal resilience. We got our insights from the 2020 refugee crisis that evolved in Greece. Here is the agenda of the presentation. First, we will start with the purpose and the significance of the study. After that, we will delve into the theoretical constructs, the employee resilience, emotional online social support, and the organizational identification, followed on by our methodology, our findings, and also the theoretical and practical implications, and we will end up with our conclusions. So the purpose of our study is to examine the factors that influenced the resilience of security personnel during the 2020 refugee crisis that happened at the Evros border between Greece and Turkey, specifically which for the impact of online social support on resilience and the mediating role of organizational identification. We also analyze data from security personnel directly involved in crisis management, and the research investigates how social media interaction shape perception of support and affect resilience under high stress conditions. The significance of our study is that it presents empirical evidence on public organizations, particularly security forces, highlighting the dual role of external social support and organizational identification in building resilience. It offers insights into how public organizations, in a broader perspective, can better support their personnel in challenging environments. And our findings contribute to both theoretical knowledge and practical strategies for boosting morale and enhancing organizational efficiency during crisis. So our first theoretical construct is employee resilience, which refers to the ability to adapt to environmental volatility and recover from stressful or exhausting situations. It is closely tied to employee psychological state, and it can be influenced by the level of social support they receive. In public organizations where economic incentives are limited, employee morale heavily relies on stakeholders' perceptions of the organization's value creation within the community. The second theoretical construct is the emotional online social support, which, according to literature, individuals typically rely on three main types of resources through social interaction. The first is tangible, the second is informational, and the third is the emotional support. This study focuses only on social support, considering it as the most critical. It originates from external sources, such as family or a social network, making it a key factor. The other two, tangible and informational support, on the other hand, were provided by organizational members in the field through direct interaction and communications. So this leads us to our first hypothesis. The perceived emotional online social support of Greek security personnel is positively related to their resilience levels in the context of the refugee crisis of 2020. And our third theoretical construct is organizational identification, which is defined as the perception of oneness with or belongingness to an organization. It positively impacts employee behavior and consequently influences organizational outcomes. It is connected with increased engagement, higher job satisfaction, stronger commitment, improved performance, and enhanced productivity. Here we have our second hypothesis. The perceived emotional online social support of Greek security personnel is positively related to their organizational identifications levels in the context of the 2020 refugee crisis. Our third hypothesis is that organizational identification of Greek security personnel is positively associated with their perception of resilience in the context of the 2020 refugee crisis. And our fourth hypothesis is that the organizational identification of the security personnel mediates the relationship between online social support and resilience in the context of the 2020 refugee crisis. Moving on to our methodology, to investigate the proposed hypothesis, we employed a structured questionnaire targeting security personnel directly involved in managing the specific crisis. A snowball sampling technique was utilized to reach participants effectively. Our data were collected between January and March 2024, and our final sample comprised of 237 participants, including armed force personnel, police officers, firefighters, border patrollers, and nurses. To the data that we collected, we analyzed using the process 2.4.2 macro and SPSS statistics 23. About our measures, we used 10 items for EOSS, 6 questions for organizational identification, 9 questions for employee resilience, and all of them were measured with 5-point Likert scale. On this slide is depicted our proposed model. And we will go on our standardized factor loadings for each item. As we can see, all of them exceed the 0.5, which was our threshold, except the fourth question from the emotional online social support, which was excluded from further data analysis. And we also see the employee resilience, the 9 items that formed the theoretical construct. Moving on to Cronbach's alpha and means and standard deviations, we see that all of them exceed 0.7, and we also have the path hypothesis testing. We can see positive and strong correlations with a small p-value. Moving on to our findings, from our sample, 88% was male, while 12% were women. The profession that they did was, the vast majority of them was from armed forces, followed by police officers. After that, 4% was the border patrols, firefighters, and the list is nurse, only 2%. Regarding our social media visit frequency rate, 53% were self-defined as frequently using and visiting social media, 1 to 3 times per day. After that was very frequently, above 4 times per day, which was almost 1/4 of our sample. We have also 12% indicating that they visited their social media platform only 1 per week, and occasionally 8%, which was 1 every 2 days. Also, we asked our sample to self-identify themselves as content users or contributors or creators. Most of them were, as you can see, 68% were self-identified as content consumers. 27% they said that they were contributing, and only 5% that they were creating some content on their social media platforms and their profiles. We will move on to our theoretical implications. This study advances the literature on online social support and in uniform employees' resilience by uncovering the mediating role of organizational identification in crisis context. It also extends the discussion to public organizations by highlighting mechanisms that enhance security personnel resilience, which in turn contributes to organizational resilience and sustainability. It also expands social support theories by incorporating the digital dimension of networking as a crucial factor in building resilience among security personnel. It also bridges crisis management and social identity theory, providing nuanced understanding of how employees' sense of belonging to their organization affect the effectiveness of crisis management efforts. And it also highlights the pivotal role of organizational identification as a key factor that strengthens security personnel resilience and enhances their commitment to organizational goals during a crisis. On our practical implications, we can highlight that it contributes directly to management and public relations realm, particularly within the context of crisis. We also recommend that leaders should are encouraged to prioritize employees' sense of belonging with the organization, and also this can help cultivate cohesive and supportive work environment where employees feel valued, connected, and motivated. We also recommend that leaders actively promote opportunities for employees to build and expand their social networks, both in person and through online platforms, to enhance collaboration, resilience, and engagement. Also, leadership should prioritize enhancing employee self-esteem and empowerment by actively demonstrating trust and confidence in their abilities. And also adopting a two-way communication style is essential, fostering open dialogue and constructive feedback. This approach ensures employees feel valued, heard, and actively involved in the decision-making process, strengthening their sense of ownership and commitment to organizational goals. About our conclusions, the findings emphasize the social media's dual role in crisis as an external communication tool and a source of support for crisis responders. Leaders should bolster security personnel self-esteem and organizational identification to enhance resilience in challenging situations. Also, this study highlights the need to integrate social support as a strategic asset for crisis communication and resilience building. Thank you very much for your attention. If there are any questions, I will be happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a really interesting presentation, and you had statistical analysis there. Now, anyone from the audience would like to pose a question? Neophytos Aspiriadis, yes.
Sorry, good morning. I would like to ask basically two questions. The first, very interesting topic, I would say first. The first is has to do very technical one, and the second is something that I haven't quite understood. The first is, how did you identify the categories of social media among the consumers, creators, and the contributors? And the second is, I didn't quite understand how the self-esteem actually of those people, of those rescuers, if I understood correctly, relates with the social media use of particular kind, social media use, I guess, from the presentation. Thank you.
So regarding your first question, for the social media contributors are guys that interact with within their social media profile. It is mentioned in the literature. I can't remember I have it on the full paper. I will search it if you want and send it for you, because there are three categories, as we mentioned before. If someone is self-categorized as a contributor, is the guy that interacts. So let's say it presses some like on a photo, he comments. If he's self-categorized as a contributor or no, as a creator, he creates some new content in his or her social media profile. For example, upload one photo or upload a video. And if he only consumes, let's say, from the social media profile, is just this guy that does not interact and just see or just read the reports or the uploads from other guys. So this is the three different types of social media interaction. And can you please say again your second question? The self-esteem, did you say?
Yeah. But before, just a follow-up on this one.
Yeah.
How did you gather this data? I mean, I understand that there is a process of how to find and identify and then gather this data and put it in these categories.
Yeah, there was questions that saying that if you like to comment or to add some context when you see to a friend's profile something like a new video and you want to comment, so this guy is categorized as contributor because he contributes in the ongoing discussion on social media.
Okay. Thank you. And the next, how the self-esteem relates to social media use in supporting.
Yeah, so when one guy is self-confident and he knows that he's, let's say, in the path that he can actually influence other guys, it is most, let's say, likely to upload new photos and have more interaction with other guys. And these guys with self-esteem are usually guys that want to project their profession and also to attract other guys that are interested or just asking about his profession or about his types of activities. So self-esteem, if one person has high self-esteem, it is more likely to be as a self content creator, for example, or just interact with others. Because when someone feels confidence about himself, it is more likely to expose himself to open audience and to other comments.
Very, very interesting. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? Because I have two questions. So my first question is, could this study be replicated in another context, for example, in an organizational crisis?
I think it depends on the crisis that we are talking about, but I think our special focus was how the organization is, let's say, well respected or not in the social environment. This is, I think, a crucial parameter to take under consideration because it depends on how the environment perceives that this specific organization contributes in creating value all over the community or regional community.
Thank you. And my next question is, you said that organizations need to encourage their employees to expand their networks in social media. Now, in the textbooks, we find that during the times of disasters, we should have a strict policy about what employees communicate during the disaster, so as the organization can speak with one voice. How your findings could incorporate these type of issues?
I think this is, let's say, something that needs a little bit more elaboration because, especially for when we are talking about armed forces or nurses or policemen, are guys that are included in the society. So it's let's say something like a part of their body from its own society, from their own society. So I think that if they are just not asking, if they are interacting in order to get some support from the civilians that are around them, and most of them don't have the, let's say, the anger or the if government omits something, let's say in floods in Valencia that we mentioned before, or in Tempe disaster. It's something that we are a body of the, let's say, greater body of the society. So I think this is, let's say, a little bit more acceptable, because when an earthquake strikes or a flood, and there are some highlighted government omissions or from the government organization in general, specific omissions, this causes anger. So I think this is a little bit more complicated in order to handle and give the organizational, let's say, voice in only one direction.
Thank you very much. Really interesting findings. Let's move on now to the last presentation for this session. We have Georgia Papadopoulou and Anastasios Koukopoulos from Athens University of Economics and Business.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, and they're going to present us their study, Exploring the Crisis Behind the Employee Experience in the Greek Hotel Sector, Preliminary Findings from a Qualitative Study. Georgia and Anastasios, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Can you hear us?
It's perfectly loud and clear.
Awesome. It's a great opportunity to be part of this conference. Thank you very much. Great organization. Everything's great. So let's present. Georgia will present, and I will be here also for questions at the end. Thank you very much. Is it okay?
Yes, we can see the presentation. Can you please move on to the second slide?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, you can start.
I can't see the presentation, sorry.
You can't see the
No.
Anyone else? Is anyone else able to see the presentation?
Now it's okay. Now it's okay.
Okay, that's great. So, Georgia, the floor is yours.
As you know, the tourism and hospitality industry is a global powerhouse in Greece. Tourism represents around 20% of the national GDP, making it a cornerstone of the economy. Beyond numbers, the sector plays a crucial role in showcasing the country's rich history, stunning landscapes, and warm hospitality, which form the foundation of its global reputation. The hospitality industry is not just about providing services, it's about crafting experiences that reflect the nation's identity and values. However, this vital sector faces pressing challenges that threaten its ability to maintain these high standards. One of the most urgent issues is workforce shortages. In the 2024 alone, over 80,000 positions in Greek hotels remain unfilled, a statistic that highlights a systemic problem. These shortages aren't due to a lack of demand for services, but stem from underlying issues such as poor working conditions, job insecurity, and the seasonal nature of employment. Many workers are leaving the industry for more stable and better paying opportunities, creating a talent vacuum that affects service delivery. The result is a tangible decline in service quality, which impacts guest satisfaction and, more broadly, the reputation of Greece as a top-tier tourism destination. Against this backdrop, our research focuses on understanding and addressing these challenges. Specifically, we aim to explore the factors driving the employee experience crisis in Greek hotels. Why are employees dissatisfied? What organizational and systemic issues contribute to this dissatisfaction? More importantly, how does this EX crisis ripple through the industry, affecting customer experience and the overall resilience of hotels to adapt and thrive amid these disruptions? Our objectives are threefold. First, we aim to uncover the root causes of the EX crisis through a detailed analysis of employee perceptions and experiences. Second, we seek to understand the interplay between the employee experience and customer experience, how the quality of the work environment influences service quality, guest satisfaction, and business outcomes. Finally, we propose actionable strategies to stabilize the workforce and restore the reputation of Greek hospitality. These strategies are not just short-term fixes, they are designed to build resilience, ensuring that hotels can weather future challenges and continue to deliver exceptional experiences to guests. This research is critical for the survival and growth of the Greek hospitality sector. By addressing these issues, we can help create a more sustainable, employee-centered approach to tourism, one that supports both the workforce and the national standing as a world-class destination. In the context of tourism, a crisis represents a critical turning point where disruption impacts both businesses and communities. Derived from the Greek word crisis, it signifies a need for decisive action. The literature highlights that in times of disaster, maintaining well-being by addressing basic needs is foundational. However, crises also offer a unique opportunity to reshape operational strategies. Tourism, while being a key economic driver, is inherently vulnerable to disruptions such as natural disasters, pandemics, and geopolitical events. Hotels, in particular, must maintain operational resilience through disaster recovery plans, focusing on adaptability and preparedness. Crises can be categorized into potential, latent, and acute stages, each requiring different responses. Managing this effectively through active strategies like risk prevention or reactive measures like recovery plans ensures that organizations can adapt and thrive post-crisis. Employee experience management is a critical framework for linking workforce satisfaction with organizational success. It operates through three key systems: rewards, training, and empowerment. Empowered employees deliver higher quality service and foster customer loyalty, making EXM a strategic priority. Effective EXM strategies align with broader organizational goals such as innovation, safety, and customer satisfaction. For instance, supportive workplace practices like regular feedback, meaningful work, and career development enhance engagement. The concept of transactional brand and psychological contracts underscores how aligned expectations improve workforce retention and performance. Ultimately, investing in EXM transforms the workplace into an environment where employees feel valued, leading to greater productivity and a more resilient organizational culture. The Greek tourism sector's ongoing challenges underscore the critical need for robust crisis management strategies. Employer branding and internal crisis communication play pivotal roles here. Transparent communication builds trust, while employer branding attracts and retains talent by showcasing an organization's value proposition. Additionally, the Voice of Employees framework ensures that employee insights inform decision-making, driving engagement and loyalty. Collaboration across stakeholders, including government and industry leaders, strengthens resilience. By aligning efforts and sharing resources, tourism organizations can navigate crises more effectively, maintaining service quality and reinforcing Greece's reputation as a top-tier destination. Regarding the methodology, our research employs a mixed methods qualitative approach to deeply explore the dynamics and challenges surrounding employee experience in the Greek hotel sector. By utilizing both in-depth interviews and focus group discussions, we aim to capture a comprehensive understanding of EX from diverse perspectives. The study included interviews with 10 industry experts from luxury and resort hotels in Greece. The semi-structured format of the interviews allowed for flexibility, encouraging participants to elaborate on their experiences and insights about workforce issues, organizational support, and EX challenges. In addition, focus group discussions were conducted with frontline employees, including roles such as receptionists, waitstaff, and housekeepers. These participants were selected to provide an operational perspective on EX, highlighting day-to-day workplace realities. The focus group offered valuable insights into shared employee concerns, including job insecurity, working conditions, and the lack of career advancement opportunities. Thematic analysis was employed to identify recurring patterns and themes, while grounded theory provided a framework to uncover the deeper relationships between workplace conditions and employee perceptions. Using Atlas TI software for systematic coding, the data was analyzed to ensure reliability and consistency. This methodological rigor ensures that the findings accurately reflect the nuanced realities of EX in the Greek hotel sector. So about the findings, the first theme emerging from our analysis centers on the factors shaping employee experience. Participants emphasized the importance of organizational support, particularly fair wages, professional development opportunities, and maintaining a healthy work-life balance. These elements are foundational in creating a supportive and motivating work environment. Leadership commitment to employee well-being plays a pivotal role in fostering satisfaction and loyalty. Demographic influences such as education level, cultural background, and prior experience also shape employees' perceive their work environment. For instance, cultural differences can impact integration and satisfaction, highlighting the need for tailored approaches to workforce management. Additionally, corporate culture emerged as a significant factor. A positive work environment that promotes mutual respect, camaraderie among colleagues, and a sense of belonging not only enhances employee morale, but also strengthens organizational cohesion. By addressing these key factors, organizations can create a workplace that supports long-term employee satisfaction and engagement. Our findings also reveal the outcomes of a positive employee experience. High levels of satisfaction correlate with reduced employee turnover and greater engagement. One HR manager noted that regular well-being surveys provide insights into key areas like workload, stress, and satisfaction, enabling targeted interventions. Moreover, satisfied employees are more likely to demonstrate high morale and productivity. They go beyond basic job responsibilities, contributing innovative ideas and maintaining a higher standard of performance. However, in the Greek hotel sector, challenges like low wages, poor working conditions, and unmet agreements have driven high turnover rates. These issues underscore the need for systemic changes to improve EX and retain talent. The third area of focus is strategies to enhance employee experience. Improving working conditions is critical, particularly adherence to agreed terms such as salary, benefits, and working hours. Transparency in communication and supportive management foster trust and help retain employees. Employee development is another key strategy. Providing opportunities for training, skill development, and career progression reduces voluntary turnover and enhances overall satisfaction. Employees who see a clear path for growth within an organization are more likely to remain engaged and committed. Finally, recognition and collaboration are essential. Recognizing employees' contributions boosts morale while fostering interdepartmental collaboration, strengthens team dynamics and efficiency. These strategies are not only beneficial for individual employees, but also contribute to the long-term sustainability and resilience of the organization. Few words about the discussion. The qualitative analysis reveals significant workforce challenges in Greece's tourism sector, particularly following the pandemic. A declining labor supply combined with deteriorating working conditions has left the industry struggling to attract and retain skilled employees. Seasonality and short-term contracts further compound this instability, leading to high turnover rates and operational risks. Core issues in workforce management emerge from the study. Fair compensation is a critical factor. Low wages and extended hours remain major deterrents for employees. Improved living conditions, job security, and organizational support are equally important. Addressing these needs aligns with crisis management principles as reducing turnover ensures continuity in operations during peak demand periods. Strategic actions include transitioning towards humble employment practices, such as offering long-term contracts and development opportunities. Additionally, fostering an inclusive and collaborative corporate culture can serve as a powerful risk mitigation tool. Employees who feel respected and valued are more likely to remain loyal and contribute positively to the organization, ultimately enhancing workforce stability and resilience. Improving employee experience offers a dual advantage. It mitigates workforce-related risk and strengthens the organization's resilience. Satisfied employees are more engaged and better equipped to maintain operational continuity, particularly during crisis. A positive EX also reduces reputational risks by preventing service interruptions and ensuring consistent quality. Employer branding is a key component in addressing labor shortages and attracting top talent. By positioning themselves as desirable employers, organizations can differentiate in a competitive labor market, building a reputation that appeals to skilled and motivated individuals. Effective employer branding involves not only external marketing, but also internal initiatives to align workplace conditions with the image being promoted. Proactive crisis management strategies are equally vital. Continuity plans that include regular risk assessments and impact analysis enable hotels to anticipate and address workforce shortages before they disrupt operations. Training and empowering employees to handle dynamic demands further ensures preparedness during peak periods. Together, these measures create a resilient framework for managing workforce challenges while safeguarding the sector's reputation and operational effectiveness. In conclusion, this study highlights the pressing need for structural changes in Greece's tourism and hospitality sector. Addressing working conditions and fostering supportive organizational cultures are vital steps in reducing employee turnover and maintaining service quality. By prioritizing a positive EX, organizations can mitigate workforce-related risks and ensure stable operations. Investing in workforce development is another critical strategy. Providing robust training and support systems empowers employees to handle customer demands effectively, reducing vulnerabilities and enhancing overall resilience in the sector. These initiatives align with a broader risk management strategy aimed at sustaining service quality even during challenging periods. A comprehensive crisis management approach that integrates CX improvements is key to achieving sustainability. Collaboration among stakeholders in government, industry, and education can drive innovative solutions to workforce challenges, creating a resilient tourism ecosystem. Finally, future research should focus on quantitative assessments of EX in other regions, offering comparative insights and refining best practices for crisis management in the global hospitality industry. Together, these findings advocate for a proactive, employee-centered approach to risk management as a means of strengthening Greece's tourism reputation in an increasingly competitive international market. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. The results were really interesting, and you covered a stakeholder group that it is less examined in the research. Now, does anyone from the audience wants to ask a question to Georgia and Anastasios?
No questions, I suppose.
No questions. I have one question.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay. Now, you studied employee experience and customer experience. Do you think that during a health-related crisis, such as COVID, employee experience can be the key for a hotel to effectively manage the crisis, or perhaps customer experience, or perhaps both need to be managed?
So, very good question. Thank you. Let me share my personal experience, because due to the fact that I am a hotel owner in Aphlios City, so I've been since 2005 in the industry, and as an owner since 2009. A health crisis like the COVID period was a mess for the hotel industry. I don't know if I can say it in another way, but I have to say that supporting the employees and focusing on employee experience can help go through this crisis. Okay. I can remember, I'm 42, so I can remember another price like this. Okay, so I don't have something to compare, but to the best of my knowledge, I have to say that it's very important to focus on employee experience and through this crisis. I don't know if I covered your question.
Yes, perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else would like to ask something? Yes, Neophytos. Thank you.
Hello. Very, very interesting research, I must say, and very structured. I would like to ask, I think somehow it has been answered, but two questions basically. The first is, how can this research be applied to actual hotels, and especially small hotels? Because in Greece we have a lot of small hotels who don't have the knowledge and don't have the capacity perhaps to go into this kind of knowledge and apply them into their practice. So how could this help them actually, or how can we communicate it to them?
Okay, so do you want to answer? Yes. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
First of all, thank you for the question. Personally, I believe that listening the voice of employee, even in small hotels, we can learn from them. Listen and learn the voice of employees, of our employees. We can communicate with them, even in small hotels, and offer them and fulfill, satisfy their expectations and basic needs, hygiene factors of their experience.
And can I add something? So that's a great question. And why is it a great question? I do research on tourism sector, and we often discuss this problem for new technologies. Okay, such as simple technologies, let's say simple to implement, like ChatGPT in a hotel to help you address some reviews or answer an email or everything. We know that most of the hotel organizations in Greece, as also in Europe, like 95%, are small businesses. Okay, how can we train those employees to use new technologies or to go beyond crisis? I think European programs, funded European programs, is one way. Okay, so to work with the program and to be in touch with real cases, real hotels, is the one way. The other way, I think, governance is the other way. Okay, so this is an issue that, especially like crisis, has to do with technologies, and we have to find a way, because hotel industry is the cornerstone of Greece, and it's very important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Can this be applied to other crises? For example, we had last year, I think, or the year before, in Rhodos, for example, a huge wildfire, which affected also the tourism sector, and how this can help build resilience in hotel industry.
I suppose yes, but you know, it can be applied to other crises, despite the fact that mostly they're in certain places, so you have to deal with the people that are in charge for those crises in these areas. I don't know if you can structure a crisis plan for a whole region or for the whole country. I'm not pretty sure about that, but I do believe that you can generalize this in a way.
With empowered and engaged and committed employees, you can formulate and the appropriate crisis strategy in order to cope with a crisis situation.
Great. Have you published the research, this research?
It's a preliminary research, so we're on our way to publish.
We are waiting then. We are waiting.
Thank you very much. Thank you. With your bless, hopefully.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I think we have come to the end of this truly engaging session and conference. Over these 2 days, we have explored in depth critical issues in risk and crisis communication in European settings, and we have shared valuable insights and exchanged ideas. I would like to express my gratitude to our organizing committee, our chairs, our keynote speaker, Professor Audra Diers-Lawson, our presenters, and all of the participants for their engagement, energy, and contribution to this event and to every session. I think we took a step forward in building a European crisis communication research community. And I would like to thank you once again for being part of this experience, and we hope to see you again at our future events. Thank you very much, and have a great weekend.
Thank
you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.